Hello and welcome to another Showoff discussion. My name is Ash and I'm the Global Community Content Manager here at Elementor. And today I'm joined by Simon from Blend Digital, who are a creative agency based in Denmark, specializing in everything from content writing to website development. The website which is in discussion today is blenddigital.dk, which is in fact Simon's very own agency website. So without further ado, Simon, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Hi, guys. I am so glad to be here.
It's really great to have you here, Simon. Perhaps you could get started and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Simon or Simon, and I'm the founder and creative lead of Blend Digital. And yeah, I've been working with graphics and marketing almost decade, I think, and especially with web for the last 5 years. And for this part, I've been doing a lot of different web projects for clients and for the partners. And I really come to think of Blend Digital and myself as a place where we go in and break some boundaries and get to know the rules in order to break them when it comes to design.
Cool. I like that, breaking the rules. I think that usually ends up with a pretty interesting project at the end, if that's part of the scope. How did your journey start with Elementor?
I didn't plan to make websites at all. I did a lot of Photoshop work and I did a lot of illustrations in Adobe Illustrator, and some of my clients had websites made from the agency in Elementor. Surprise. And from here, I used a freelance guy to maintain all of this, and all of a sudden this guy was like, I need to find myself, so I'm going on a backpacker journey for 3 months. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know what padding or margin was, so I opened up my first client site, and it was actually not that hard as I thought, because I was like, okay, this seems intimidating, but it took me a couple of hours and I got the hang of it. And afterwards, sitting at a new agency who soon discovered that I could work a bit in Elementor, that ended up in me building 220 one-pagers in 3 months through Elementor, in fact. And after that, it just stuck around, and I kind of got the curiosity of it, because if you can make 220 landing pages in 3 months and still don't hate the software, then you're like, okay, I should probably stick around for this, right? So that's
Definitely.
essentially it.
Let's talk about Blend Digital. Perhaps you could just go over the scopes and the goals of the project.
The main goal of except of making a website an agency website that doesn't feel like an agency website, was to actually make sure that it catered to current design trends without losing the timelessness that I personally think a great website needs to have. And probably the other millions of designers out there, I really enjoy the shift in design trends right now, going for the more subtle and bland kind of design over to more over the top and breaking rules with weird fonts and weird iconography I've used a lot of on this side. So I kind of wanted to represent that in order to attract the right kind of clients as well, who can also identify in not seeing their business as dull or subtle, that wants to go out there and make some noise, right?
Definitely, yeah. I think you've done a great job creating this agency website and ticking all of those boxes of the many things you've just mentioned. It has a very kind of fun aspect to it, has a very artsy aspect to it as well. The typography is fantastic. Everything is pieced together really well. Looking back over this project, is there anything that you would have done differently?
What I want to change about the way I got to the result was that this is not the first edit I made of the site. I actually built an entire Elementor website after looking at competitors and looking at design trends. And when looking at it, I started mapping it out in Figma. And then when I built it, I was like, it's just the gut feeling from the design perspective that this doesn't work. So I actually re-scratched that whole part. And what I wanted to do different in this would be that I didn't want to be too detailed in Figma before getting under the hood and creating it, because in my opinion, when you take it from your mockups to the final browser, that shifts the balance and the energy of the website a lot, and you need to bounce a bit more back and forward. I at least need to, so I would definitely change that in different projects.
I'm sure you're not the only designer in the world that has scrapped a design and restarted. I'm sure that happens on a daily basis for sure. So don't feel too bad about that. Well, you've ended up with a great product, so it was obviously the right call to make. Let's take a look at the website. Are you happy to share your screen and open up the
sure
Elementor editor and perhaps go through a few aspects for us?
Okay, so I actually wanted to highlight a couple of different sections on this website. The first one is this kind of, I would nearly say, the personality disorder hero banner right here, where we have the custom cursor carving a hole in the whole hero banner, showing up a contrast version of it. The whole goal with this was to create like a really impactful first-hand experience, as this is the first thing that people see when entering the site. So the way this was made was actually, I'm not going to lie, it was kind of a nightmare, and it included some custom code, and I am not like a master developer in CSS in any way. So this actually uses a template from Gumroad that I fetched, and you can see here that I got some custom code going on, and then I got some CSS for this one called the hidden section. This is the section you can see when doing the mouse over effect, and if I go down, it's placed absolute, which is kind of important to make the effect work. And you can actually see that this section is built entirely on its own and made as like the background of the first hero banner here. So if I remove the CSS class here, you can actually see this section is built entirely like the exact same content, with the exception of using another background, using this orange color for my illustrations. Like I got my icons going on here, and then I got this kind of smiley icon here that we use throughout the whole web experience. And yeah, that's essentially it. So to make this work, it was kind of crucial that I took the first section, like this bright section, and made it translate well in terms of responsibility throughout all screens. And from there, I could duplicate that, make the new screen, implement the different contrasts and variations, and here I could then implement the code. So that's kind of, if I have to say it myself, kind of a rocket science section. But yeah, this, in my opinion, this just shows what happens if you look a bit beyond and actually utilizes the custom code features that Elementor allow for, as well as you can find so many amazing templates in the community, which is another great feature of this. And for the next section, I'm just going to scroll down, because this is actually also kind of funny, and this looks kind of weird in the editor. But this is utilizing Elementor in combination with this plugin called Oh Boy Steroids for Elementor. I got some of my favorite add-ons, and it's actually great because I find myself needing it less and less as a lot of the features have been added to Elementor, like natively. But what I'm using here in order to create this effect of the stretch text, like pulling itself together, revealing these tags, and then the small icon, as well as the divider, is the hover animator. From here, I've simply, as you can see from this setting, gone in and manipulated the offset on the top and the transform here, and made a scale on the y-axis. And at the same time, this is what I've done for most of this, and this just have an opacity of animation. So I can go down here. You can see that it's the same setup, just using like the offset top and the opacity, making it fading in on the over. The reason for this is like we like to see a website as an experience that should be rewarding for like the visitors, and the best way to do this is to keep it all dynamic and breathe some life into the website through animation. Another cool section is this one down here. The effect used on this footer. And this was actually quite simple, and it's super easy to pull off. So if I just open the properties here, you can see that it's kind of sliding out from like beneath the other sections, which gives a great effect compared with or in combination with this carousel with like client names. Okay, so on this footer, we got a sticky effect to the bottom, and that's what's creating this cool effect when like scrolling down, that it emerges from this client carousel. And in order to achieve this, and not just having this laid upon the rest of the site as it is the lowest or the last section, I also needed to do a lot of work regarding like the set index. So this is set to set index 1, and then every other section on like the site is set on a higher level. And this creates this effect of it sliding out below the rest of it. One thing that it kind of got a bit mixed up with was that I have some custom animations up in my hero sections, showing like this before the hero emerged. So I'm like, honestly, I'm a big fan of hustler solutions and weird solutions. So what I also did was assigning intro animation, a fade-in animation with an animation delay of 3,000 seconds, making sure it doesn't interfere with the first load of the section. So that is kind of it for, I would say, the front page that I personally think is worth having like a closer look at. Okay, so another interesting thing in this is utilizing like the Elementor pop-up templates, and this is like by far one of my favorite features in order to like really get your website popping and to include some more interactability. And what I chose to do was go ahead and create this like full screen navigation menu. And when you're running like an agency website, you often don't need, unless you of course have a blog, then you don't need to like map it out on too many like sub menus and stuff like that. So I wanted to make this like navigation menu like visually aesthetic and appealing, using these big texts, again with some hover animation from Elementor, making this sidebar, which was honestly a lot easier after like migrating to the Flexbox containers. Playing a bit with the icons here, making something kind of like a compass compared with the signature like old school smiley here. And then we have the contact here. And then of course all of the navigation and social media. And I think the great way of doing it this way is that you actually dedicate the place you need to like go in and make a meaningful navigation experience. And all of this is pretty like straight out of Elements and nothing too fancy in the pop-up settings down here. Using the entrance animations, ensuring that the menu itself is showing in nicely in a very rewarding way. And if we take a look at the mobile version too, which I also think is definitely worth highlighting, it's the same layout exactly, just like with a bit of like small alignment adjustments, and yeah, that's it. And I think this really shows like how much of a native experience you can create only using Elementor compared to like going way too nuts like I did in the hero section with custom code and stuff like that, because you don't need that in order to create some really banging results.
That's a really great demonstration, Simon. Thank you very much. You mentioned Flexbox containers. I was going to ask you about them anyway. I'm not sure if you use them for those 220 websites that you built, but,
No.
so perhaps you have experience with, sections and columns. Perhaps you could just talk a little bit about your journey with moving from those into the Flexbox container.
Yeah, it's actually funny because this is the site where I took the migration from like traditional sections and columns, which I was super used to. And like you could get a lot from those, which was great, of course. But as soon as I was like, oh, Flexbox sounds nice, did a bit of reading about it, and then like hit the activate button, I was like, no way, you could just keep making groups into groups into groups. And yeah, I got a bit carried away with it at first, making a nightmare out of the layout. But as soon as I think it took like an hour or something, then I had the full experience and understood the difference. But that has made my designs so much easier. Like usually I start in Figma and map out the design in order to not just take like the obvious choices from a normal like section and columns layout. But this truly allows me to go beyond, and I can even start an Elementor now and stretch the Figma part if I'm in a hurry, because I know I'm not like limited, and I'm not like drawn in a certain way, because I can just like map the whole section out and the whole website out just as I want. So it's a huge like benefit for my design process.
Oh, that's great to hear. And yeah, I mean, there's a learning curve, of course, with all of these things that are introduced, but actually spending some time with, with the Flexbox container and learning about the principles and the options that you have available, you really can mock up, layouts extremely quickly with much less code. You don't need to use inner sections and stuff like that anymore. So aside from Flexbox containers, which Elementor feature you feel is an essential part?
Like one thing I could like never work without, and some would actually say that I probably overdo it a bit, but it's a big thing of my designs, and that is like the motion effects and how easy they are to apply to literally everything. When you go into a website, people's attention span is so short today, and you need to reward them no matter what they do. That is why, like, when you scroll on the Blend Digital website, the whole section is like fading up and blurring out and stuff like that. And the motion effects is always playing like a huge part in the last like stage of bringing a static site into like giving it more like an organic feel and bringing it to life essentially. And like apart from that, there's also another feature, and I don't think it's essential for the design, but it's so massively underrated in my experience, and that is like the custom loading screens you guys added. I am such a huge fan, because there's nothing worse than that static feel from moving from one screen to another, and now you can just add this slide in your logo and then slide out again. It just smoothens up the whole like user experience. So I think that's massively underrated.
I agree. A hugely underrated part of the product that was introduced last year, I believe. But it's if you're somebody, and you clearly are, you're very passionate about the experience that the user is going through. You talk about when somebody scrolls, they should be rewarded with additional movement. That's the missing piece, isn't it? When you switch from page to page, and there is an option there for people, and you demonstrate a very, very good use case on your website of using that feature and doing it very well. And alongside the motion effects as well, it can be very easy to overdo motion effects. And we don't want to use a crazy amount because it will slow the loading times down. But, subtly used in the correct places, it can make a real difference to any website. What about your future goals? What are they, and do they involve Elementor?
Definitely. Like I'm so blessed that I'm working with a group of really ambitious like brands and companies at this moment who have the courage to take the step and like break the status quo of their market And a big part of that is like the web experience, because that is where all like the traffic from social media and search engines is leading to, right? So a lot of big projects there, a lot of exciting projects. I'm super happy that I like have the opportunity to work with these kind of amazing people. And like for future goals, like obviously I want to like expand what it's possible to build in Elementor. And more specifically, I kind of have a bit of like an interest for making more complex like e-commerce setups using Elementor as like the building blocks, as that is something I've seen rarely done, at least in Scandinavia, and that could. I think that could like elevate the whole experience on web shops, and yeah, and obviously making that work while people are shopping for products and not being like mesmerized for a banner. That's a nice like touch of balance there. So yeah, that's kind of the goals and future products.
Thank you very much for joining me today, Simon. The information you provided, I'm sure, will bring great value to our community and will inspire many projects moving forward. We'll be sure to link to Simon's winning website in the description below. But for now, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye now.